Here are the horoscopes for the week of the 14th to the 20th of July 2014. We have an interesting week with lots of movement this week because we have, first of all, just coming out of the full moon in Capricorn, and we have Mercury moving back into Cancer. So we've had a very long retrograde period. Time seems to have stretched itself while Mercury's been retrograde in Gemini, and this takes us all the way back to the end of May. So Mercury went into Gemini, then moved into Cancer, turned retrograde, went back in Cancer, back in Gemini, turned direct. It's now gone back through Gemini, and we're on that very last tip, which is going back into Cancer, and by Wednesday we are completely out of what's called the retrograde shadow, which is the point where Mercury turned in the first place. So for the next 3 days, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, this is our chance to get the meaning of what the Mercury retrograde in Cancer has meant. Hopefully we're all a lot more aware of what the retrograde in Gemini has brought up, which has been to do with us getting to know our own mind, getting to see how we're thinking, whether our thinking is clear or restricting us, whether we're allowing conversations to flow or whether we're trying to dominate. So now that we are more masterful of our mind, we have Mercury going into Cancer, which will be a couple of weeks, but the next 3 days are the important bit. As we come out of that retrograde shadow, what have we learnt about ourselves on a cellular, emotional level during this retrograde? We're having many other aspects which are rinsing us on a cellular level, but there should be a story that you can trace just going back to the beginning, at the end of May. What have you learned emotionally? What have you learned about where your mind and your subconscious thoughts and feelings are either needing to be freed up or working in fine tuning with you? So there's been a chance to really have a look at that connection during this retrograde period. But it doesn't stop there, because then on Wednesday we have Jupiter going into Leo. So another Cancerian story really. The Sun is passing through the sign of Cancer at the moment. The full moon was opposite in Capricorn. Mercury's just coming back into Cancer. Whereas right at the other end of the Cancerian energies, Jupiter has spent a year there and is now leaving. So we've actually had a whole year to become masterful of our emotions and to rinse ourselves out on the cellular level, and that's much of what I've been talking about for the last year, to become master of our emotions, to get rid of all the toxic programming, to really rinse ourselves out, to make some space, because when Jupiter, which stands for sovereignty and expansion and resonates in our bodies on that level, when that moves into Leo, it's going to be like coming out of a cold sea or coming out from underwater and walking up a beach and lying down in the full sunshine and just soaking in those warm rays for a while. So we want to make a bit of space before Wednesday, and Mercury will help us do that as well with the acuteness of the mind, to just rinse out any last essences of anything that you're hanging on to, perceived pain, fear and stories of the past, because we want to be nice and like a sponge, nice and light and bouncy, to be able to have the room to start to soak in some of these Leo rays. Now going forwards, Jupiter in Leo may be a bit too much, so the advanced word of warning is not to overdo it, because Leo is a very gregarious and expansive sign itself. So we're going to be learning lessons about boundaries and our own inner balance, and expanding and contracting during the next year as Jupiter stays in Leo. But for now I think we need to concentrate on the Cancerian bit and just do those final couple of days of work so that we're nice and cleansed, masterful and ready to move into that space. Then by Thursday we have Venus going into Cancer, so another Cancerian aspect. This is very normal, this happens once a year. So Venus is moving out of Gemini, which has been quite scatty. It's chatty, it's flirty, it's quixotic, it's running around looking at stuff, it's liking all the shiny things. But as Venus goes into Cancer, that again will get more deep. So we'll suddenly have the opportunity to have a look at the value of our feelings. So now we've rinsed out, and now we've examined with Mercury, and then we've had the Sun there and we've had Jupiter there. Now we might be able to, by the end of the week, get the true value. Which feelings are actually valuable to us? which actually sustain us and which are actually staying with us as we go into this next phase of our lives. So there we go. It's all about Cancerian energy this week. Lots of comings and goings, but a fairly step-by-step plan if we choose to follow it that way. So those are the horoscopes this week, and I'll see you next week. Just a quick addition to this week's horoscopes to say that for the last 5 years I've managed to keep my prices at the same rate, but this month I will be increasing the cost of my readings by a small margin. But I'd like to offer you the opportunity to come in and book a reading before that happens at the old prices. So for anybody that would like a reading, if you could book with me before the end of July, then I will hold the old prices, which are £60 for an hour or £35 for half an hour, and that is tarot and astrology recorded MP3, so that you can keep and listen back to. So do have a look at my Zodiac and Learn Astrology channel to find out more about what you can get from a reading. It's completely personal to you, to your birth chart, to the position of the stars that make up your inner fabric, but also to having a look at what the stars are doing around you at the moment, and to be able to read those waves. So there's nothing scary, there's no set future. It's about seeing what's coming up like a weather forecast and being able to actually prioritise and pace yourself and make the most of those energies. And I do work on Skype, so do let me know if you don't have to be in London, but if you'd like to connect over the ether, all you need is your date, time preferably, city and country of birth, so that we can draw up your chart. But if you don't have your time, that's okay too. So do come through to me and book before the end of July if you'd like to make use of those old prices. But like I say, the prices are only going up slightly because I try to do this for as best value as possible. So thanks a lot, and I'll see you next week.